Good evening and welcome to the regular meeting of the St. Peter School Board. It is Monday, September 16th, 2024. We are in the St. Peter Governor's Room at 6:30 p.m. First thing we need to do, call the meeting to order. Next is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next up, we need to consider and adopt the agenda. We have one slight change to the agenda. Action item number 10. We're going to slide up to the top of the agenda. I know you're all interested in staying for a couple hours, but we'll move you to the top to have that conversation first. So we're moving item 10 up to number 1, shifting down accordingly.
I move that we approve the agenda as you just changed it.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Agenda is adopted. Thank you. Kimberly, do we have any requests to speak on the agenda? No requests. Next up is approval of consent agenda items. You'll find the full packet in front of you and also on the board book portal. Are there any items that we wish to pull out or comment on?
I have a couple things. First off, I wanted to point out Joni Anderson's retirement, that she had been with the district since 1990, which is a very, very long time. So I want to thank her for all of her years of service. And I had a question about all of our teachers that are on overload. Just curious, like once they go on overload at the, 168 students, like just talk me through that a little bit. Is it just kind of like just talk to me about it a little bit. Because we have 4 at the middle school, it looks like, and 1 at South.
Yeah, there are some others as well that will be coming forth. I mean, so the overload procedure is in really 3 different buckets, and ETV might have to help me up if I miss a bucket here. One is if you exceed the number of students under the class size limits at the elementary level, or the number of daily students that you see at the secondary level. So that triggers an overload. The other thing that triggers an overload is somebody who takes on an additional class assignment and in lieu of their prep period. And then there are some, what we would call intermittent overloads, where somebody is giving up their prep period for an overload to cover for a teacher, for an example, on maternity leave, but it's not a daily basis. All of those have a daily rate of pay of $44 per day. So
Okay.
it's triggered in a number of different scenarios.
And in all those situations, obviously, that for the district, it makes more sense to pay that overload than it would be to hire an
Yes.
additional teacher. Because I saw a lot of it seemed to be in the Fayette area.
Yeah, in the middle school, John, in the Fayette area, correct?
That's because of our day 1, day 2 schedule. It allows 1 teacher to see 2 grade levels,
Okay.
rather than 2 teachers, 2 grade levels.
And then with that being said, I wanted to ask, because last time, Mr. Code, I couldn't vote on the contract because that was a conflict of interest. So I didn't know if I could vote on the consent agenda, being that my husband was one of the people mentioned in the consent agenda.
We could just pull that item, and then you can vote for the consent.
Or I just don't
agenda.
vote on the consent agenda. I didn't know.
Yeah, you could abstain.
Okay.
Other items of note in the consent agenda? Would entertain a motion.
I move we accept the consent agenda as described.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Discussion. Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. And 1 abstention. Consent agenda passes. Thank you. Next up is the student spotlight. I know we have students doing amazing things, but it's early, so We'll get them next time.
Yeah, North will have the first one.
Sweet. Awesome. We look forward to that. And then we don't have a student council report tonight. Because they are so active and engaged in the St. Peter schools activities, they're doing the awesome things. But we will also approve those two representatives in one of our action items. Action items are up next. The first is consider the approval of the transportation contract addendum, and we have some guests here to also speak to it.
Yeah, correct. So we have Mike Hennick and Bob Becker, who are the owners of 4.0 Transportation of St. Peter, and Monica Hash, who's the manager of Saint's Bus for St. Peter. So thank you for being here tonight. We appreciate your presence. What has occurred is that the school district, as you know, contracts with 4.0 school services for before and after school bus routes, co-curricular travel, other related services. Over the past month, the district has discussed revisions to the contract in order to ensure consistency in service and a reduction in our overall transportation costs as a part of our budget adjustment plan. 4.0 has graciously agreed to restructure the transportation contract. The business committee reviewed the transportation contract at their meeting on September 13th and recommends its approval. Several features. It does extend the contract out for a period of 10 years in a way. It sets rates through 2029-30, I believe. And there's also an opportunity for the district to determine that they may not want to extend the contract for those additional years. In other words, there's an out clause in the contract. The business committee spent a fair amount of time reviewing the contract or the addendum, recommends their approval. I would recommend the approval of the contract as well. Are there questions?
I'll move the approval.
I'll second it.
You have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Discuss.
Yeah. Any discussion?
I would just echo what Dr. Olson said. I believe it's beneficial to the district to approve this agreement.
I guess I would thank Saints Bus for kind of helping us through these couple years
Right.
that times are tough, and just thank them for helping us through the bumpy times and allowing us. And I think for the most part, I mean, we seem to have a good relationship. Of course, there's always bumps in the road, but for the most part, I feel like we've come a long way. My kids don't ride the bus anymore, but technology-wise, I feel like we have a good handle on who's on the buses. Back when the days when it was like you just had to call and do the old radio and hope somebody spoke up and found your kid, you know, that's what we had to do. Now I feel like they have a good handle on that, so I feel like things are going well, so.
And I would echo that 4.0 has been a valued business partner with the St. Peter Public Schools since, I believe, 2007. I think that was when we started the agreement, and we've had excellent service. They're very responsive to our needs, and we'd be pleased to continue to work with them over time.
Awesome.
Any further discussion? We do have a motion and a second. Discussion. Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We've approved the transportation contract addendum. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. And you're welcome to stick around if you. Yeah. Have a good night.
Thank you very much.
All right, moving on to the new number 2 on the agenda. Consider acceptance of gifts, donations, and grants.
There are no gifts or donations to report this month.
Makes it an easy action item. Next item up, consider approval of student representatives to the school board for 2024-2025.
This is something that you've done on an annual basis since 2007, again. We're pleased to continue to recommend the inclusion of student representation on the school board. And the two individuals who would be the student representatives are Emmy Remmert and Isabel Misch for this school year. You can see the guidelines in your addendum to the board packet. The student representative is a non-voting member. Student representatives given an opportunity to fully participate in all board discussions held at open meetings of the school board. The student representative is expected to attend all regularly scheduled board meetings. Now, that one becomes a bit problematic because our student representatives are very busy and involved. And the student representative may attend phase 1 of MSBA board member training. I don't think that, I recall that's ever occurred, but that's been part of the practice. So I would recommend your approval of Emmy Remmert and Isabel Mish as the student representatives to the school board for the 2024-2025 school year.
So moved.
Motion,
Second.
motion and a second. Any discussion? I would add that I think it's great. It's a great way for us to hear about some of the day-to-day stuff that we don't always get to hear about. And we know attendance is hard because they're extremely busy and involved people, but the reports are wonderful when they are here. Any other discussion? We'll proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Welcome, Emmy and Isabel. Next up, consider certification of the preliminary 2024 Pay 2025 levy. Ms. Gracia.
This is kind of the Megan show, so she gets to.
All right, so you should have 4 documents in board book or in front of you related to the 24 Pay 25 levy. The first one is a memo that summarizes the levy information that we have. To note, we have currently a $2.2 million increase in our levy, which correlates to 29% increase over last year. 1.8 million of that is related to the IAQ, deferred maintenance, and voter-approved bonds. So that's over 82% of our increase comes directly from those bond payments coming into play in this fiscal year. There are other factors that are parts of this increase as well. So if you turn to the second page, this is something that we've brought for multiple years now. It looks at the market values of St. Peter. So as you can see, similarly to previous years, we're seeing increases in our market value. Additionally, 2 of the figures that are used throughout the levy calculations are the referendum market value and the adjusted net tax capacity. Those are also increased. Referendum market value excludes seasonal cabins and ag land, and then adjusted net tax capacity is all of the parcels, but looks at them with classification ratings. So as you can see, we've seen increases across the board there. That, combined with our decreasing student population, means that our property wealth per pupil is increasing. So how that factors into this levy then is that we're getting less aid and more revenue, or excuse me, less aid and more levy from a lot of our categories. So that was a big factor last year in our levy increase. This year, there are a few categories where that comes into play, but not near as many as last year. Because a lot of those aids already dropped off. But in the future, if our market values go down and or our student population increases, we might see some of that aid come back, but at this point we're pretty far off from having aid on a number of our categories, so it's fully levy for those categories. The next page then is just a summary by group of the increases. So you'll see there's the general fund, community service, and then debt service. And as you can see just on the graph, the debt service section obviously is the largest chunk that increases. And like I mentioned, general fund gets calculated on referendum market value or net tax capacity. So that's just the split of the first 2 columns. But it's a numerical and graphical representation of the increases for this, this levy cycle. And then the very last document, which I'm not going to cover in great detail, but it's just a very detailed listing of the increases or decreases for all of the categories. They also have 3-year adjustments for the levy. So you'll see those adjustments as well. Some of the big highlights for changes just include unemployment, OPEB, career and tech, LTFM, and LOR. So those are just some of our categories that had some larger adjustments, either in current year or prior year adjustments. To wrap it up, as we do every September, we are recommending or requesting that you certify the maximum. From Friday to today, we saw a 2% change. That's going to continue to happen over the next 15 days that they're running the levy. As MDE clarifies some of their calculations, as we change some of the inputs that we have. And so If we were to under levy at this point, that creates a ceiling, which we want to be able to maximize at this point. If in December we decide to under levy, we still have that opportunity to do so. But historically, I think we have always, and across the state, it is very common to certify the maximum in September. So that is our recommendation.
And this presentation was reviewed in detail by the Business Committee at their meeting on September 13th, and they recommend as well that you certify the maximum allowable levy.
I'll move that we certify the maximum levy.
Okay.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion and questions.
So a lot of this is because of the referendum and enrollment, right? Is that kind of the two driving?
By far the big chunk is the indoor air quality and the Mend the Middle project.
Okay.
Which is a significant project.
It is. It's a significant project.
Discussion. 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 Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We have approved the maximum on the 2024 pay 2025 levy. Thank you, Megan. Next up, consider approval of the 2023 through 2025 principals contract.
Yeah, I just note that the HR committee has reached an agreement on the 2023-2025 contract with the St. Peter Principals Association. Some of the key items would be 3% on the salary schedule, a new option for a 403B match, changes for additional stipends based on changes to duties that came about with the budget adjustment plan this past spring, a change reflecting statutory requirements to earn safe and sick time, and language clarification in certain sections of the contract. Now, Bill, you're the HR committee rep here, so do you want to add anything about the contract?
Well, I think it took us a while to figure out all the language changes. There seemed to be a miscommunication with the superintendent change. Once we found the actual language that was agreed to and the principals agreed that those language changes were what was agreed to, things went smoothly, so.
What's the new option for the 403 match? What is?
I think there's an option for a match of, is it $1,800? So if an individual principal puts in $1,800 into their 403B, the district would match the $1,800.
Okay.
And I think that's maybe one of the first 403B matches that we've had.
But I think, Darren, we have all the dates correct now in there?
I think so. Finally got the year right.
Everything was gonna be retroactive to 2021 or something.
Yeah. All right, I think we have a motion in a second?
I don't know that we do we?
We don't have a
No,
motion yet.
not yet.
Okay,
Seeing as I'm the HR committee rep, I'll move
right.
approval of this agreement.
thank you.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Discussion. We'll proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We have approved the 2023 through 2025 principals contract. Thank you. Thanks for sticking around, principals. Next up, we need to consider approval of a revised 2024-2025 interim superintendent agreement. This was from a clarification from the business office. It was determined that the interim superintendent's agreement required a revision to to Article 7, Section 1, I think is what it is, of the agreement, in order to maintain eligibility of the interim superintendent to remain on the school district's health and hospitalization group plan. This is a cost-neutral change for the district. It's just a change in the benefit to meet what is needed.
Correct.
So this was talked about, I believe, at the Human Resources Committee.
Yes.
So we need to change those numbers in here.
They're correct in the contract.
Yep. There's Article 7, Article 7,
Article
Section
7,
1.
Section 1.
Yep.
I'll make a motion to make that change as indicated, to go to the VIBA instead of the HRA, or go to the HRA instead of the VIBA, right?
Reverse that.
Rather than so going to the
At the
VIBA
VIBA
instead of the HRA.
Right. Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Discussion. We will proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Revision has been made. Thank you for sticking around too.
You're welcome.
Item 8, consider approval of contracts and pay scale updates.
Yeah. Can you move something here?
They are not in that packet.
Yeah, it's on number 6. Number 6 is the policy review manual.
Oh, I'm sorry. I missed it. That's my bad. I wrote, yep, my bad. We're going to talk about the approval of policy manual first, since it's more exciting. You can hang out for that, though,
Yes,
too.
I'm just gonna wait.
Yeah, why don't you just
Front row
chill
seat.
there. If you have input, please share. Sorry about that. Okay, so we have updates that we have in the policy manual for a second reading. And if we have updates from any of the policy committee members, any comments?
I've heard no comments.
No. Mm-mm.
And then you also have in one policy, 722, that was recommended for a single reading. So the
That's-
3 formal changes to the policy manual, if you approve them, would be 713.1 concession stand, 406 public and private personnel data, and 722 public data and data subject requests.
And the single reading one is just simply
Just changing
personnel.
personnel
changes.
names.
Yep. Yes, correct.
Surprised we hadn't done the designee change.
Yeah, I know.
I would entertain a motion. Oh, Kate, do you have something?
I would move that we approve the policies that are listed in first and second readings.
Okay.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Discussion. Discussion. Hearing none, proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Now we'll get to that. Consider approval of contracts and pay scale updates.
That's right. You know, things are serious when I get the old cheaters out, so here we go. Yeah. Go
Before
ahead.
you start,
Yes.
just
Mhm.
one thing to note. I think in visiting with the board chair, you could potentially approve all of these in one motion, but we're thinking that you should take each of them separately. So as you go through each one, then
I'll
we'll
pause.
stop and pause for
Okay.
questions or comments or
Very good.
ideas or thoughts or whatever they might be, and then consider a motion on each of those.
Okay. Certainly, we have 6 contracts and pay scale updates for you tonight. The first is a 24-25 contract for behavior interventionist position at South Elementary. This is a 174-day contract. The hourly rate reflects a 3.5 increase for the 24-25 school year. Any questions about that position?
So we'll do each of these individually with a motion and a second to approve and then move on to the next one. So I would entertain a motion.
Also move.
And I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion about the behavioral intervention specialist or behavioral interventionist position? Discussion. Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. That's approved.
The second contract is a 24-25 contract for the Native American Student Support Liaison position. This is a 10-hour-a-week position that provides support to Native American students and their families. The hourly rate reflects a 3.7% increase. In addition, a $1,500 stipend is in place for the work of this position in the American Indian Education Funding Application and on the Native American Parent Advisory Committee. The funding for this position is acquired through the American Indian Education Award.
I move that we approve the contract for Sherman Club.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
I just want to reiterate that last line, that this funding is acquired through the funding for the American Indian Family Parent Advisory Group.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 3.
The next contract is a 2-year contract, 24-26, for the Community and Family Education Aquatics Coordinator. This is a stipend position. The proposal reflects a 3% increase in year 1 and a 3% increase in year 2.
I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the aquatics coordinator.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? We will proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries for the aquatics coordinator. Thank you.
The next is a 24-25 school year aquatics pay scale for lifeguards, lifeguards with WSI, head lifeguards, and lifeguards for physical education classes. The pay scale mirrors lifeguard wages at St. Peter Park and Recreation Services. Rec and Leisure Services.
Make a motion to approve the pay scale for aquatics.
I'll second it.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Are we having problems getting lifeguards?
I don't know that we're having, I haven't heard that we're having problems necessarily getting lifeguards, but I think if we were to not have our pay scale be equal to lifeguards for the city hires, they're not as willing to work, is the bottom line.
Yeah, no,
And that was,
I just hear generally around the area and that
yeah, I don't,
there's kind of a shortage.
I think different times of the day are a little bit more challenging than others, like that lap swim in the morning might be, maybe folks have some
and maybe for physical
ideas.
education classes at times, John.
Yeah.
It is difficult to find lifeguards for physical education classes. We were relying on a lot of GAC students, but it's tough just to commit to those hours. So we're getting creative on how to manage that.
Any further discussion? We will proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries for lifeguards. Pay scale.
The next proposal is for the 24-25 school year pay for Saints overtime staff. The proposal is a 3.3% pay increase, which would make that hourly rate $15.75 per hour.
I move we approve that pay increase.
I'll second.
Motion. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Discussion. We'll proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
And then lastly, the HR committee had a discussion about substitute teacher and substitute paraprofessional rates. The recommendation is that at this point, no change in the substitute teacher rate, so that would remain at $180 per day, $90 for half a day, and an increase of 50 cents per hour to the paraprofessional substitute rate, which would bring that to $15 an hour.
I'll make a motion to approve
the substitute teacher and substitute teacher paraprofessional rates.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Discussion. Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
All right.
Thank you. That was fun. All right. Next up, consider approval of office support contract for 2023 to 2025.
The HR committee has reached an agreement on the 2023-2025 contract with office support. Notable changes include 4% on the salary schedule, clarifications on emergency and school closing procedures. That would be if there would be a day called either by the governor or the superintendent, which would be a snow day or an e-learning day. So there are different rules in a sense that are followed based on how those days are called off. There would be an increase in the defined contribution towards health and hospitalization insurance, a change reflecting statutory requirements for earned, safe, and sick time, and additional levels to the professional standards program. That's where office support can earn some additional pay per hour based on completing professional development that's approved by the district. So, Bill, from the HR committee perspective?
This was probably our most difficult negotiations. And I think it's a small group, so it's difficult to, I mean, percentage-wise, it's a nice percentage, but total package is not that, it's not that big of an impact on our budget. But I think it's important that we maintain competitiveness with the surrounding area in these positions, so.
And the office support group has ratified the contract from their end, so it's awaiting your action.
Also move.
Okay.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Discussion. Thank you to the negotiation team. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We approve the office support contract for 2023 to 2025. Thank you. Next up, consider approval of the READ Act Memorandum of Understanding with the St. Peter Education Association.
So we have, we learned that in order for us to receive, well, not to receive funding to pay for READ Act training, but to access the funding for READ Act training, we have to have a memorandum of understanding with the Teachers Association. The money for READ Act training is put in a reserved account, Megan, I believe, until such time as there's an official memorandum of understanding in place. The memorandum of understanding needs to outline the teachers who have, who need the required training, compensation for training, and procedures outlining compliance with Minnesota Statute 120B.123, which are the READ Act requirements. The MOU is enclosed for your consideration. It's been reviewed by the HR committee and is agreed to by the executive committee of the St. Peter Education Association. So what it does basically is it outlines that teachers are paid, their hourly rate is determined by the teacher extra compensation schedule of the master agreement for training that occurs outside of the regular contracted time. They also are eligible to receive compensation for successfully meeting QComp goals tied to READ Act training. And those QComp goals are really tied then to improving student achievement in reading based on the training that they receive. They also will receive 50 continuing education units to use towards licensure renewal. And there's some language in here about the need to comply with the requirements for READ Act training for teachers, because it is a legal requirement. So, given that, I recommend your approval of the memorandum of understanding with the St. Peter Education Association regarding READ Act.
So just for clarification, the SBA Executive Committee had the authority to make the agreement?
Yes.
Okay.
That must be according to their bylaws.
And right now, the only teachers that can take the training are the ones that we've identified.
Yeah, Jana, you want to,
Yeah, we've identified our K-4 classroom teachers, our elementary ELL teachers, and our K-12, well, really K-8 special education teachers, and then anyone choosing curriculum for reading and literacy.
Okay.
And so next year will be phase 2, and so we'll catch quite a few more individuals at that time.
there are, what, roughly 45?
About 50.
About 50.
And our early childhood teachers are doing letters training as well.
And so we get funding for this?
We do get funding, yeah. That's above and beyond our per pupil unit funding. It's specific to READ Act requirements.
Okay.
That was a sizable portion of the historic legislation for school funding.
A mandated program, but that was
Yeah,
funded at least in.
finally funded.
Yep.
And I think, Megan, it would be accurate to say that some additional funding was freed up for the training, right?
For the literacy aid, so we have literacy incentive aid, we also have the READ Act funding. And the READ Act funding comes in two parts, it's the training piece and then curriculum. The curriculum piece can also overflow a little bit into the training. So.
Alrighty. Good job, team.
That's a lot of time. 50 to 55 hours of training is a lot of training. I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the MOA with the SPEA. Playing a little bit of mingle there.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Discussion. Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We've approved the READ Act memorandum of understanding with the St. Peter Education Association. Thank you. That concludes the action items portion of the agenda. Next up, we have informational items. The first is the first reading of revisions to the policy manual. Those are included in the packet in front of you.
Yeah, there are two revisions to the policy manual. The first is policy 506 on student discipline. Actually, the first paragraph that you see in red is a paragraph that was in the model MSBA policy, but not in our policy. So the policy committee is recommending that for consideration. The second paragraph is some new language that was in the model MSBA policy. In policy 806, the crisis management plan, once you've had an opportunity to first discuss 506, we'll come to 806, and John's going to take you through that rather detailed language that is being recommended to for addition to 806 crisis management. So questions on
Questions on
probably 506.
506 first?
Is this the same, this is exactly what we did out at MVed for the 506?
I
Yeah.
believe so, yeah.
Okay,
This is the model language
yeah,
from the MSBA
yeah.
model policy. If there are no other items on 506, we'll jump to Dr. Graff in 806.
Okay, thank you. So the policy committee has asked me to come and give my little spiel to the full board. This is the same presentation that was also shared with the district safety committee, which meets quarterly to talk about policies related to safety. So just a quick background. So Statute 121A.038 was adopted in 2013, and that language substantially changed how we need to approach Policy 806, specifically with our preparation for active shooters. So that policy 806 currently does not, there's a typo in my presentation, this document. Our current policy does not include the language that is required of the statute. So I wanted to give you a little bit of background on that statute so that you guys can make an informed decision. So the statute really defined two different types of active or preparation drills. The first is an active shooter drill, and the second is an active shooter simulation. Active shooter simulations, you can see in the lower right-hand side, active shooter simulations are the full-scale practice with props. Those are prohibited. We do not do those. But by definition, with our philosophy of run, hide, fight, we believe, active shooter drills. And if we do active shooter drills, there's a whole host of requirements that we must meet, and those are outlined on the back side of that page. So any questions about the definition of active shooter preparation? It's an emergency preparedness drill designed to teach students, teachers, and school personnel and staff how to respond in the event of an armed intruder on campus or an armed assailant in the immediate vicinity. And that is the purpose of our safety drills. Okay. All right, so we'll go through some of the requirements of the new statute. So our active shooter drills must be accessible, developmentally appropriate and age appropriate, including using appropriate safety language and vocabulary, culturally aware, trauma-informed, inclusive of accommodations for students with special needs, include a reasonable amount of time for students to debrief. During debrief time, students must be allowed to access any mental health supports on campus. So what that might look like or would look like is after our safety drills have concluded, we would have conversations in the classroom to make sure that kids understand that it was a drill and the importance of those drills. And if any student needed to access our counselors or our social workers, they'd be permitted to do so. Our active shooter drills must be accompanied by an announcement prior to the drill informing students that there is no danger. So we would make the announcement, this is a drill, this is only a drill, to make sure that everybody knew. Schools must provide notice for every student's parent or legal guardian when practical 24 hours in advance and inform parents that they can opt their children out. So we would make that announcement at least 24 hours in advance via Thrillshare or Infinite Campus. Active shooter drills there must be a plan in place for those who opt out, and students are not required to participate. Additionally, this is number 11 on that document. Students in middle and high school must be provided with 1 hour of violence prevention training annually. We are confident that we take care of this within our health curriculum. Our safety drills, we talk about things such as if you see something, say something, and that all qualifies. Number 12, students must be given the opportunity to participate in school safety and violence prevention planning, and we believe that we do that with our PBIS programs. And then lastly, the last requirement is that boards must discuss the following at a board meeting. So boards must discuss the effect of an active shooter drill on safety of students and staff. And the safety committee believes that it increases our safety, being prepared, knowing what to do in the rare event of an active shooter. And we must also discuss the effect of an active shooter drill on the mental health and wellness of students and staff. And we're all aware that these are heavy topics. They're not fun topics, and it's kind of scary. And when you look at the requirements of 1 through 10 above, we believe that meeting those requirements makes it manageable and makes it well worth the effort. On the flip side of that, there's also discussion that preparation brings stronger mental health. So knowing what to do could have a positive benefit on the mental health of staff and students. So that is the background on the statute. The safety committee recommends that the board add the language which is in the board packet, the red line language, that would detail these requirements in policy 806. Any questions for me?
So this is a new statute?
2023.
Okay.
Mr. Kell?
Dr. Graff, given the news media coverage of active shooter events, do the schools do anything with your students when there has been a active shooter incident elsewhere in the country and it's flashed across the news?
I can only speak for the middle school perspective. We have not. We do communicate about the importance of being prepared during our safety drills. I also want to add that as of right now, we are not doing active shooter drills across the district. We are simply doing lockdown drills. We're waiting guidance from the board here before we would move forward, because we want to make sure that we're compliant with 121A prior to moving forward with any active shooter drills.
I would note that requirement 13 also, I think John has taken you through that tonight. So you have, at a board meeting, discussed those 2 bullet points, and as this policy comes back for a second reading, we would review those 2 bullet points again.
I have a question. So, Dr. Graff, like we know that that drills like these of all, lockdown active shooter drills feel very necessary in our current age. But we know that they can create some negative mental health effects for some responses from some. Can you talk a little bit about, from a safety committee's perspective, you use different language, different terminology scaled to the age group, right? So that the littles are doing lockdowns and it's talked about in a very different way than a high school drill. Can you just talk a little bit about how you differentiate?
Correct, and please correct me if I'm wrong on this, but the language we're using are safety drills, and at the lower levels, the procedures are lockdowns. It's, if there is a danger, we lock the doors. At the middle and high school levels, we begin to talk about scenarios, and not in great detail, but if the active shooter or if the intruder is in the gym, what decision would we make if we're on the other end of the building? So we start to build in those scenarios to match our philosophy of evacuate first. So that's how we change it up a little bit. So early childhood and south, you guys are not doing evacuation drills tied to active shooter training. North?
North has historically, until this went into effect. So it was more like immediately like lock down, clear the hallway, get out of view, get behind locked doors. And then as the year went on, we practiced like announcing where a potential threat may be, but we called them safe, they were safety drills, but we used the term lockdown, get out of the hallway, and then use the PAs, and then like Crisis Go, which is our communication app, and to respond, and then kids and teachers would kind of go together. They'd coach them to our rally point, or the idea of the rally point.
Thank you. And I think part of my question was if for those who haven't been part of a drill, right, the philosophy is preparation, not panic, right? Like there's thought put into making sure that calm and appropriate calmness is kept in place when possible, because we don't want to have people panic. We want them to feel prepared. Yeah.
And I know in the policy committee, we have spent a lot of time talking about this particular policy. And I think it's important to note that students are not required to participate, and the parents are allowed to opt their child out from those particular safety drills. The parent has control over a lot of that. The mental health requirements of the kids before, during, and after any of these drills, safety drills is really important. And the staff is included in their, this, what, mental health wellness of staff is also incorporated into this, plan. I think that, you know, as a member of the committee, I think the safety committee has done a very thorough job. I think this looks like statutory language, and it's also best practices, and there are constant, committee attention. There is constant committee attention to this particular policy. Therefore, I will move that we, no? Well, it's just an action okay, so everybody take a look, please take a look at this, because it is very thorough, and, this is something that we all today need to have in our vision, so,
So
thank you.
our active shooter simulations, they're not required by law?
They are prohibited for schools to participate with or in.
So why do we even talk about it?
I think for me, it was nice because when this statute first came out, it was hard to differentiate lockdown, active shooter drill, and active shooter simulation. So seeing the extreme side of that spectrum helped put it in the box and say, okay, we're definitely not doing that. This is where we fall. Law enforcement agencies do participate in active shooter simulations, and they can, my understanding, recruit high school students to participate in those, but not during school hours. And those drills are very, very productive for the first response teams, but not appropriate for our students.
So during a drill, do you like go around and like just check like to see like, can I see into that classroom? Is there like wiggling of a door handle and those kind of things?
Students know that the purpose would be to make sure all doors function, that they lock. So they're aware of the fact that somebody will come by and nudge the door. They're also aware that somebody will look in the window to make sure that people are quiet and out of sight.
But
And
that's like as
that's
intrusive as it
discussed.
gets. It's not gonna
Yep.
be,
Yep.
Okay.
It's very quick, and there's a lot of discussion about just safety. We're just,
Yeah.
there are many opportunities or many reasons why we might do this, and we just want to be prepared. If there's ever a danger in the building, this is what we would do.
And John, do you want to just mention just a bit about, is it standard response protocol that the safety committee's looking at?
Yeah, so there, Officer Hughes, Mr. Doherty, and myself went to a training this past summer on standard response protocol. And it's a slightly different way of looking at things. And in that, schools or organizations prepare people for 5 different scenarios. And now that I'm on the spot, I'm going to forget the 5. But one is a lockdown, one's an evacuation, one is a hold. And a hold would be like what we call a doctor lock. So let's say somebody's injured in the hallway or somebody gets sick in the hallway. You don't want students moving around, so you just put a hold. One's a shelter, and that would be like there's some threat outside, maybe a rabid raccoon. So you just lock the doors and don't let anybody out. And then the other one is like the weather safety drill. And in that, perhaps the philosophy would switch from a run, hide, fight to a we are prepared for 5 different scenarios, and we would use these in many, many different situations. And in that, perhaps we wouldn't need to worry about what we're talking about tonight, because we would simply do lockdowns. So the plan is for the safety committee to explore standard response protocol and provide some updates throughout the school year.
If I might speak from previous experience when I was teaching, there were lockdown, active shooter kinds of drills that when they started, everyone was anticipatory of them. It got to the point where people know now what a tornado drill means or a weather drill. They know exactly what it is and they're comfortable doing that procedure. And as you suggested, Dr. Graff, the knowing what to do in most cases is a very good habit to have in your brain.
I have a couple more. You always talk about lock the doors. Are you talking about locking the classroom doors? Cause aren't all the outside doors locked?
So all of our buildings have single point of entrance, so all doors are locked throughout the day except the main office, and you always have to buzz in to get through that. So we are discussing locking the classroom doors. Many classrooms are always locked. At the middle school, we use a magnet so that that door can freely swing. You pull the magnet and now it's locked.
How does that work up at the high school again with all those windows? What are they doing?
They're doing their best.
Okay.
The doors would remain locked, but it would be a little more difficult to get out of sight.
If I might add to in that particular situation, because I've thought about that too, these kinds of opportunities to plan in those kinds of classrooms are way better ahead of time than if it were ever needed, that we don't want that to happen, but they can get a plan for classrooms.
And-
Yeah, that's why I was
Yeah.
wondering what.
And our current
plan was.
philosophy is evacuate first.
Mhm.
Great question.
Now I have one more question. Cell phones. What is our current policy with cell phones?
So at North and South, no cell phones
Correct.
in the classroom.
Okay,
They have, I mean, students have them, but they don't use them. The teacher may keep them in a spot. They don't access them during the instructional day. Yep.
Middle school and high school cell phones are away during instructional periods. They're okay to be used during passing time and lunch.
okay, so my question
Stay
is,
tuned, Bill.
yeah,
March, you have to have a formal cell phone policy in place by March of 2025.
I know that. Question is, do you address cell phones as part of the active shooter drill?
So, once again, speaking for the middle school, we have not. There is going to be some conversation with that. The standard response protocol, the training we went to, encouraged all students to have those cell phones because if something bad were to happen or a lockdown would be called because there is a rabid raccoon outside, families will know very quickly. And it's very calming to hear or to see your child's text say, everything's good, there's a raccoon outside. So that would be the ongoing conversation is how do we respond to that?
My concern is, and it would be interesting if we could figure out a way to determine this, but if everyone uses their cell phone simultaneously, have we overwhelmed the system and our emergency services having communication problems because of it?
Likely.
And then the second thing about cell phone use, you hate to think about it, but over in the Iraq and Afghanistan, a large majority of the IEDs are set off by cell phones. And if people start using their cell phones, if someone has technical expertise, we could be setting off explosive devices in the school.
So back to your first point, I do believe that our law enforcement personnel have multiple other ways of communicating in addition to cell phones. So I don't know that their communication internally in response to a potential danger would be compromised.
But I think they probably have range limitations. on
And we
that.
can, that's a good thing. We actually have a meeting coming up here with law enforcement. Be a good thing to talk about.
I'm sorry to be such a
No.
stickler.
Thank you.
Did I also see in here where you cannot combine, like you have an active shooter drill, so you can't pull the fire alarm?
I would imagine. I don't, you,
Yeah, in the statute, active shooter drills cannot be combined.
it's something else.
See, that'd be the first thing I'd do.
Why don't give people
Yeah,
ideas?
don't get, yeah. Moving on.
It's happened.
Next, next information item, leadership development plan. Dr. Olson.
Yeah, I just wanted to share with you and provide you an update on the Leadership Saints Leadership Development Plan. The plan is designed as a formal program to provide leadership training for staff members that will be useful in their jobs, actually help the district out, and provide a basis for becoming fully licensed administrators at the principal and/or superintendent level, and or enhance their readiness to assume positions for which they are licensed. As you look in the information, there's an emerging principals component, there's an emerging superintendent's component, and there's a career administrator component. We have one staff member, Mr. Doherty, who's in the emerging superintendent's component as he's working on his superintendent license. And we have one staff member, Dr. Graff, who's in the career administrator component, who's having opportunities to work on his district-wide leadership skills. The program, I think, has been effective in the past, and with the two individuals we're talking about, Mr. Doherty and Dr. Graff, we are working on developing those action plans that you see the template for, which will involve very specific strategic focus areas and goals and actions, and you'll be hearing from them throughout the year.
Do we have any teachers?
We do not have teachers identified in the Emerging Principals Program yet. That's something that we're still talking about. We do have at least a couple of our teachers, staff members who are licensed principals. So the idea is build the bench.
Yeah. Great.
I like it.
Okay.
Next up, interim superintendent focus areas and goals, 2024, 2025.
Yeah, just in terms of the work that I've had an opportunity to do in my rather quick transition into the superintendent plan, there are really 5 areas that seem like they were emerging in addition to those operational areas that you always continue to work on. As you're well aware, the first is the budget. So the goal there is to develop the annual school district budget in a way that evaluates the effectiveness and efficiency of programs and results in financial stability for the district. A second area is the middle building project, and working with Dr. Graff and Seth as the primary contacts on that. And Bill, as the board representative, we work on the project oversight committee. And you hear me talk about this a lot. The goal is on time, on budget, and meet the promises made to the taxpayers of the district with the bond that was passed in the spring. And I'm here to tell you, as of today, Seth and John, we are on time, we are on budget, and we're focused on meeting the promises made to the taxpayers of the district. A third area is communication, and this is one that we're working with Darren on and Kurt Hildebrand to develop a comprehensive communication plan that works at improving communication with target audiences, both internally and externally. It also identifies strategies for keeping staff, families, and the community updated on the Mend the Middle project and the plans to stabilize the budget. Probably the one that should have been listed first is student achievement. So student achievement, the goal there is to increase the overall level of student achievement from all students in the district. So really a pretty simple way of looking at that is every kid who comes through our door, we ought to expect that we move the needle with them every single day and ultimately throughout the entire school year. And then the last area is one that I just mentioned, and that is the leadership development plan. So I know I buzzed through those rather quickly. Questions on any of those?
You mentioned this right off the bat, but I mean, these were all kind of created in consultation with a whole bunch of different groups, right? Administrative leadership, the school board, St. Peter
St.
Education
Peter.
Association. So,
Lots of input.
which is wonderful, and appreciate your thoughtfulness in prioritizing some things that we know we need to work on over this next year.
So I would, to be formal, we call them strategic, the focus areas and goals, but I'd call them the big rocks. These are the big rocks.
Set some big goals for yourself. But I think they're very representative, obviously, of where we're at and.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Time for reports. Welcome to the crew.
All right.
The fearsome foursome.
We're missing Miss Engeldinger tonight, but we will, I don't know if anyone's got a report for her or not, but. All right, so in preschool, certainly this time of the year, we're all about learning routines, and the kids are doing a good job with that. The transitions, we're excited. We're up over 20 kids this year in our school readiness program, so that is really exciting for us. As you may recall, last spring, we brought to the board the idea of using the Preschool Express Transit through the city of St. Peter. We have 3 to 4 buses that are assigned to our program. 3 are regular buses, and a fourth one does just our K-Ready program, which is a Monday through Friday morning program. And that has gone very well. We're excited to report. Those buses are air-conditioned. They have seat belts. So you walk in, and everybody's safe and sound in their seat and ready for school. So that has been just a really good partnership and had really good results with that this year. So thank you again for your support on making that leap and change to give that a try. They are making some adjustments to their route times. The first week, there were some long rides, but as they got in the groove, just like in any bus route, they were able to shorten some times and contact families and do that. So that has been working just fine. Now we're on to safety. So we're talking all things safety. As Mr. Graff's talked about safety, ours is of course a little bit different, but we're focused on bus. And then we'll be focused on fire safety as well, and we'll make a full field trip up to the fire station. That's our new neighbor, so that's always exciting, and lots of photo opportunities with a fire hat on. So those are good times. Last week, our ECFE program had the kickoff, and it was play and popsicles. So families could come to our playground at our early childhood center, play on the playground in the evening, and have a icy or a freezy and play. They had over 27 kids, plus parents and family members. So there was probably about 50 people there. So that was a great turnout. We're looking forward to a really great school year and appreciate the support of the board and our families in the community.
Hello. I want to start by saying that last week was National Arts and Education Week. You may have seen that online, and I just want to express my gratitude and appreciation for our teachers that work in visual arts, music arts, and performing arts. We've got really dedicated staff across the district and also in community education. So a shout out to Tammy Skinner, who really integrates that in community programming as well. September 15th was also the first day of Hispanic Heritage Month, and individual sites are working with liaisons and teachers with special interest in developing age-appropriate activities. And I know you're going to hear a lot more about this from Annette, Mrs. Engeldinger, as they are doing the Hispanic Joy Day in October at the high school. Like early childhood, South Elementary has been very focused on routines. We've been learning all about Star Pride, as have I. I caught myself telling my son he was showing good Star Pride last night. Our students have been practicing positive and expected behaviors in the classroom, the lunchroom, the playground, etc. And we've also, of course, gotten right into reading and math instruction and social studies and science and all things specialists. In fact, we've wrapped up our FAST assessments in reading and math, and we're just getting into the SABRS SEL. So I just want to say thank you to all of the South teachers and the South staff members that have helped me acclimate to the littles, and also to the families for being so welcoming. Students at Oshawa Learning Academy are also settling into routines. The start of the school year brings so many changes and significant turnover in that population. many of the clients at the Leo A. Hoffman Center leave at the start of a school year for their next district, which for a lot of them is our second week of school. So during our second and third week of school at Oshawa, we turned over 50% of our students. So it's like the first day of school again today. So they're just still settling in. And then Friday is our first professional development day in the district. We've got those 50 teachers working on the OL and LA for READ Act, and then our ECFE is kicking off with letters. So lots of exciting stuff.
Order there, Dr. Graff. I'm going next. All right, well, greetings from North Elementary, everybody. We have, historically we've done a spring play at North. We're actually going to have 2 play performances this year. We're doing a fall and a spring play. Director Dustin Lenhoff, is one of our second grade teachers who has gone out. He went out last year and found a grant for performing arts. And so he's using that in order to expand the offerings at North. So they had auditions going on tonight and Wednesday. At a parent meeting last week, and it's going to be the Reluctant Dragon, performed on November 20th at North. So mark your calendars now. They had a lot. I think it was packed. I think Jana was there. She said that it's quite a great representation. So Mr. Lenhoff's doing a great job getting that performing arts rolling again, bringing a whole new, bringing that stage back. We haven't used the stage other than for FIED, and it's been performing arts quite a bit now again. So that's pretty awesome. Let's see, last week, as Mrs. Cora talked about, we had, Dr. Graff talked about our safety drills. It's always a law to make sure that we get through certain safety drills by a certain week of the school year. So we put in the bus drill, the lockdown drill, and the fire drill. And we always talk about, at North, the teachers do a phenomenal job, like pre-teaching it, but they also talk about it, we're not scared, we're prepared. Like we try to instill that. We'd love to wish, like nothing bad would ever happen. No tornadoes, no fires, but we can't say that. So the next best thing is to be prepared for those things. And so that's what the teachers do a wonderful job, just getting that message out and going through that process. And then answering the questions that kids have. There's always a lot of what ifs, and they do a nice job just like fielding those questions and like settling the students down, and so they can really focus on learning. And then, as Mrs. Cora talked about, the fall screeners, we're about done with those. We have the math and the reading general knowledge screeners, which are fast ones, fast assessments. Comprehension, fluency with reading, social emotional with the MySabers. And a new component we're putting in this year is another just quick screener. It's called encoding. Some of us know that as spelling test. So there's certain words at a certain time of year at each grade level. And so we're going to use that as a screener this year to see if some of this phonics work, a lot of the phonics work that we've been doing all the way back in South and preschool is now being applied, because ultimately we have to be able to write and communicate that way. So that's a new screener we're going to keep an eye on this year. So we're excited about that. Dr. Graff, one more item. Jana talked about bringing some recognition to our artists, our art teachers. I want to bring some recognition to our IT department. So that's another staff group that want to bring a lot of attention to. They do a lot of work in the background. We have a lot of devices in this district. We have servers, Wi-Fi, all that stuff. So Mr. Sorbo and Kathy Wabrook and Paul Johnson and Michael Johnson are doing a great job keeping that all up and running and just ready to have the kids use it and the teachers leverage it for instruction. So thanks to that team.
We're off to an incredible start. We had our first PBIS assembly, school-wide assembly, on September 6th. At that assembly, we set the stage for the year, kind of talked about expectations and Saints' pride. Not Stars' pride, but Saints' pride. And then we had some fun. We had teacher competitions, 2 teachers per grade level compete in like human hungry hippos. And 8th grade won, which is the way it should be every time. And then assemblies from here on out, students will be competing with teachers or with high school students in those games. So it was a fun little preview. We set our Pride ticket goal at 1,500 tickets. In years past, it's taken like a quarter to get 1,500 tickets, so it kind of worked out. Celebration once per quarter. we are already at 1,300 tickets, so we might need to rethink the goals. But awesome job for the kids. This year's play was announced. You had talked about building the play up at North. You must have done a good job because day one, fifth graders were in my office. What's the play this year? What's the play this year? This year's play will be Puffs. Puffs is a play on Harry Potter series. It's a story that follows a group of less famous students, the Puffs, who are sorted into a lesser-known house at a certain magical school overshadowed by the adventures of a certain famous boy wizard. And just quickly here, it's a celebration of the overlooked and the ordinary, reminding audiences that being part of a story, even as a background character, can still lead to moments of heroism and personal growth. So very exciting. That's good. Yeah, and that's what's funny about it is like they just get on the line. Fast testing is just about complete at the middle school. Preliminary numbers look promising. Gives us some confidence to keep doing what we're doing, but keep pushing, I guess, rather, in terms of student achievement. Our first PD day is on Friday. Middle school staff will be spending most of the day working on our literacy goal. We'll spend time identifying Tier 2 and Tier 3 vocabulary words at both the department and grade levels, and hopefully build some learning progressions with those to ensure that kids have the language they need as they move to each grade level. And lastly, shout out to the maintenance crew. The September heat wave is a killer. But overall, the rooms are holding steady and are relatively comfortable. Seth and the crew are working their tails off. Today we had 2 rooms that were overly hot, but we were able to shift classrooms around to make kids and staff more comfortable. So a huge thank you to those folks, and we can't wait for the Men in the Middle to be completed.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Superintendent Olson.
Well, I just want to echo what the principals have reported. Great start to the school year. Staff across the district, I think, are doing a fantastic job in providing for students and educating students and in serving students. So it's been a good start. I've had an opportunity to get around to all of the buildings in the district and do walk-arounds or walk-throughs, and good things are happening. So I want to report that. Secondly, just a little preview of what we've been talking about for the October 7th study session of the board. There are 2 primary items. One will be the annual report on student achievement, which will look at our achievement results from last spring, student attendance, graduation rates, et cetera. And we'll also be talking about plans that we'll be developing to do an even better job of ensuring that more and more students are proficient in reading, mathematics, and science. And then the second part of that study session will be focused on our budget adjustment framework. So one of the things I wanted to give the board members, particular, a heads up on, is to be thinking about those kinds of things that I wouldn't say would necessarily be untouchables or total non-negotiables, but would be make every effort to preserve, fill in the blank, as we go through the budgeting process. So you might say, make every effort to not disproportionately impact students of color or students of poverty. You might say, make every effort to maintain reasonable class size, or make every effort to ensure that there is a comprehensive elective opportunities in place for students. Whatever. I mean, you guys give that some thought, because that's one of the things that we're looking for in the budget adjustment process as we move forward in the next month or two, are those sort of guardrails. You know, what do we have to have as guardrails as we start looking at how to provide for that financial stability we're talking about. And then the final thing I just want to mention, we need to tonight, Megan, thank you for reminding us of that, formally announce that the Truth in Taxation hearing and presentation is set for Monday, December 16th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. here in the governor's room. And I think that need is by statute to announce that when you adopt your preliminary levy, so that if someone would like to come and question the levy, it's been announced as to when that truth and taxation presentation will occur. So, duly note that in the record, that we have announced that. That's it for me. Thank you.
We will go around the table before we do committee updates. Ms. Rosbach.
Just so exciting to hear about the start of the school year with all the students, and so much fun to see them around. And I did my first volunteer session at the concession stand at our first football game, and I could not believe how busy it was. I don't think I stood still at all that evening, but it was so much fun, and we won and did well, so.
Ms. Dewey.
I don't really have any updates either, just excited to, when I go pick up the kids, excited to see all the excitement in the high school parking lot. That's always fun, lots of new drivers in there. I do think we need to look at the traffic flow. I don't know, who would look at that? Maybe Seth, maybe? Go up and look
Yeah,
at that
safety.
traffic flow. The buses have a hard time getting out of the parking lot. We have the student section on the, north, south, east, west side. They have like exclusive rights to leave the parking lot without yielding or stopping. Number one, they go really, really fast, but the buses do get kind of stuck. So something to look at, but it is fun. If you just want fun, just go up there. It's fun. It is very interesting.
Yeah.
So.
Cool. Thanks. Mr. Cow.
Yeah, a couple of things. I too would like to give recognition to Seth. When I'm up doing the bills, I'm in his office and I hear him on the phone continuously, solving one problem, hearing another, working. He's doing an excellent job. At least he fools me. So.
Yeah. He's not actually on the phone. He's just, yeah. Yeah.
Well, the radio,
Yeah.
telephone, people come in, he deals with them, so it's impressive to see how he operates with, I don't know how many different buildings and people and so forth. Secondly, the business office staff has been very understanding of my questions concerning bills and procedures and so forth. And I think that you will be happy next month when that quarterly fund balance tracker is revealed, because I believe that there's a much better understanding of the budget up at the district office. So
Great.
I think it'll be very few surprises, hopefully. Then, as far as your communications go, I have a request from a few of the boys down at Coffee.
Uh-oh.
Getting athletic events into the,
Yeah, we saw in the paper when the Free Press said, you gotta report your scores, and I have no idea who's doing what, but they were wondering, could you put on the homepage just a little section, last night athletic results, or something like that could be posted, so.
Well, it's kind of interesting, Bill, because this was an agenda item on our administrative team meeting this afternoon, so stay tuned.
Yeah. So that was just a suggestion, so that's all I have. But please get the athletic results, because
Ms. Martins.
I would include the academic activities that are results on that too. Since Mrs. Engeldinger is not here, I'm gonna throw out a couple of things that are happening before our next board meeting at the high school. Tomorrow is National Voter Registration Day, if you haven't caught that on all of the news feeds and everything. And we have at St. Peter High School two League of Women Voters, National Youth Voter Engagement Fellows this year. We have Quinn Rasbach and Ryan Rampt, who are putting on Wednesday an assembly for all 11th and 12th graders to make sure that they understand how to register to vote and where to vote and how to find information on candidates and so on. Also on the 11th of October, there is the Hispanic Latino Joy Day that's going to be taking place at the high school, and Mr. Warren is working very hard on that, and it should be a real as good as the other two Joy Days have been. And then on October 14th, on Indigenous Peoples Day, the NAPAC organization is putting together I think it's the 3rd annual Indigenous Day walk from the middle school down to Minnesota Square Park watch for information on that. That's what I've got.
Cool. Thank you. Committee updates. First up is the Education Committee.
Well, we had curriculum review process. I'm not going to go into great detail onto all of that, but we talked about, what was it, science, social, and math, I think. Talked about a little bit student achievement, but we're going to go over that in study board session. And I think that's all we did. I'm looking at the agenda. That's all I kind of remember doing.
Thank you. How about the Business Committee?
Well, the business committee was very busy, if you were paying attention during the meeting, because we
Sure.
voted on
Yeah.
just about everything that we did, so, but yeah, it's very interesting. It's nice to see that our student count is up from what we anticipated. Hopefully, we'll be able to maintain that. Like I said, the budget, we're on track, hopefully, where we want to be. And it's all in the minutes there. And the Med in the Middle project, it's interesting going through all the design stuff that they want to do, and you just kind of have to pull them back in every once in a while, because if the architects had their way, they'd spend that amount of money numerous times over. So I feel comfortable with Dr. Olson and Seth and Dr. Graff. We have people who will keep them on task. It's kind of exciting to actually see what it's going to look like, but it would even be more exciting when they actually start doing something. So that'll be with anticipation.
Thank you. Policy Committee?
And Policy Committee, I think we've gone over pretty much everything that we did within the agenda tonight, and we are kind of looking at how we're going to approach the rest of the policies that need to be revised and so on. So they've been very productive meetings.
Thank you for those. We've got the list of upcoming meetings of the school board. We have, as Dr. Olson mentioned, the school board study session on Monday the 7th. And then all of our committees are meeting over the first couple weeks of October. And then our next regular board meeting is back here on Monday, October 21st, 6:30 p.m. Right after MEA.
National.
Be
holiday.
well rested.
We will.
Back at it. And that's all we have. Would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I will make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Good job, Charlie.